Thank you for joining us today. I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on this year. And if you are familiar with the Swedenborgian Church, we have a 7-year cycle of themes. And this year's theme is spiritual uses. And that is a really big part of our theology, is uses. You'll hear people talk about that a lot. Well, so what I wanted to do this year in my congregation is talk about different characters in the Bible that we haven't heard of or haven't listened to in a really long time. And I want to integrate what their spiritual use was. So last week, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the story of Abigail, Nabal, and David. Now, I personally have not heard of Abigail, so I was very intrigued and interested in reading it. So the story basically goes that Nabal was not a nice guy. By the way, this story is in 1 Samuel chapter 25. And so this guy Nabal, not a nice guy. He's married to Abigail. He's somebody that you really don't want to hang out with. He thinks he's all it. He's the man. He has it all. He has riches. He has shepherds that watch over his sheep. He has tons of land. He has all this stuff. And he thinks he doesn't have to share. Well, at this time, David and his army, about 600 or so, would travel the countryside and kind of watch over, kind of be the police, be the ones watching the fields, making sure the thieves and whatnot didn't really bother anybody. So David had heard that Nabal was having a feast. He was preparing all this food. Well, I don't think he was really doing anything, but Abigail and all of her helpers, I think there were about 5 of them, they were making all this food and everything for this giant feast. Well, David heard about this, and he said to his men, "Can you go down? Just tell Nabal, hey, I'm going to come to your feast. Help my men out. We watched your shepherds and your sheep and, made sure everything was safe while you were in the countryside and whatnot." Well, David's messengers get down to Nabal, and Nabal says, "Who's this David? I've never heard of him." "Yeah, sure, buddy." So the messengers bring back that information to David, and David was none too happy. So David gathered about 400 of his army. Now, in the meantime, Abigail knew that once David got word of Nabal being like this and not agreeing to be kind to David after all he had done, Abigail is also described as intelligent and beautiful. How is she going to use that? And she does. She says, "I'm going to load up all the food for the feast, and I'm going to send my helpers, the women, off on donkeys ahead of me." So she sends them ahead with the donkeys all loaded up. And then she leaves. Now, she does not say a word to Nabal at all. What happens is, as Abigail's traveling, they meet up with David. What a coincidence. And she says, "My master, please do not listen to what he said. He knows not what he's saying. Take me instead. If there's, let me repay you." So she does. They have all the food that's there. And David, when he saw her, he was consumed by her beauty. And so he was stunned that she would put her life on the line for her husband, who wasn't so nice. David was satisfied. He said, "You can go back. Everything's fine." Okay, great. Abigail used her intelligence and her beauty to stop David, to save Nabal, even though he wasn't very nice. And we are called to do those things. So Abigail goes back, finds Nabal feasting, drunk as anything, and says, "I'm not going to tell him tonight what happened. I think I'll wait until morning." So the next morning, she gets up and she says, "This is what I did for you." And Nabal couldn't believe that David was coming back, and she stopped him. Well, apparently he was so scared, afraid of what he did. It says in the scripture, his heart stopped. Now, David had heard of this, that Nabal was no more, and he sent word that he wanted to marry Abigail. He wanted to marry this beautiful, intelligent girl who put her life on the line. And the whole premise of the story that I am using is, what are your uses? What are you doing for your neighbor, for your family? How are you being used? Are you being kind to one another? Are you helping someone with their groceries? Are you holding the door open for somebody? It doesn't take a lot. It really doesn't. I want you to keep thinking about your uses, your talents. What has God given you that you can use for others? Think about it. I pray that you are able to find those uses, bring them to life, and remember to be kind and loving to one another. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and may God bless you.